What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Java Talks. I'm your host, Javangula, and as you can probably guess by the title of this episode, we're going to be talking about what happened in Alabama recently with the abortion law that the governor signed recently, and why I think that it's just a fundamentally stupid, idiotic move by an entire state, to be quite frank. So let's break it down. There's six things I really want to cover because I think that there's six things that this law really fundamentally affects. And the first thing is women's rights. When a government tries to create this kind of policy that just endangers women's lives, it frustrates me, right? When you're talking about no exception for rape, no exception for incest, what does that do for a woman? What kind of dangerous precedent are we setting for people that live in that state who can't access abortions, even if it's something that they can't fundamentally take care of, something that they shouldn't have to take care of, something that was forced upon them? What does that do for them, right? How is that helping anyone? And I understand the pro-life, that we want to protect the fetus, but how are we protecting women? How are we giving them the respect? How are we allowing them to choose what's best for them, what's best for their own abilities? If we're just forcing this on people, and we're just forcing them to have a baby despite if it was forced onto them, what does that do for them? How are they going to from there recover and go on and have a successful life, have a healthy life, have a happy life? How are they going to be able to do any of these things if they're forced to have a baby that they never wanted? And even beyond that, even if it's a baby that that wasn't forced upon them, maybe it was just an accident, it's up to them if they want to keep it or not. Why does the government have any say in whether they have to keep it or not? When you create this kind of an entire state law that makes something so important illegal, you're just spitting in the face of everyone, because that's their right to have an abortion. If they don't want to have it, if they can't have it, if they can't support the baby, if it was just a mistake, no matter what the circumstance is, it's up to the woman who's having the baby, who's holding that baby inside of her for 9 months. It's up to them if they want to keep it or not on to the government, not on anyone else, not on someone just looking, someone who's judging. It doesn't matter who you are. It's up to the person who's having the baby. And at the end of the day, that's what's most important. For the longest time, it took me a long time to understand this, to understand that no matter what I think, no matter what I think of the situation, it's not important. It's up to the person having the baby. And if that person doesn't think that it's in their best interest, that if they can't support the baby, if it was forced upon them, then that's their right to do that. And if Alabama thinks that they can just force this on everyone, then that's a stupid move, and it's dangerous, right? You're alienating an entire population. You're creating this forced entry onto human lives, and I think that that's just incredibly stupid, because at the end of the day, it's not the government's business to regulate, to monitor, to do any of this kind of stuff, and that's just stupid. And I think it goes into this argument of pro-choice, especially in 2019, is incredibly important. Enabling people to make their own choices, enabling people to respect other people's opinions and respect their choices and their judgment and their thoughts. That is the best way to have a combined community, to have this cohesive community. If we're throwing restrictions on people and forcing them to live by those restrictions, then you're not going to make anyone happy. You're going to have people with unhealthy lifestyles, unhealthy choices. You're forcing a blanket statement on everyone, even if it doesn't really fit their situation. Pro-choice, and again, it took me a long time to understand this myself, and if Alabama wasn't so adamant, wasn't so ignorant, wasn't so stupid in their decision making, then I think that they could eventually grow into this process as well. But they've proven that they can't grow into it, and I think that at the end of the day, it's up to the woman to decide what's best for her. And I think that the pro-choice argument, it helps create the best society possible. Pro-life is an interesting argument, because I think it's pro-life barely. I think that if you're jeopardizing the health of the women, of the mother, to support the child, the fetus, then you're endangering the mother's life. And that's not pro-life. That's just a stupid argument. I don't even get the point of restricting abortions on people. Because if we're endangering the mother's life, if we're creating a life that's going to be so incredibly difficult, incredibly traumatizing for the mother, how is that pro-life? You're incredibly narrow in your vision if you think that's what's helping life as a whole. You have to understand that if we're not helping the mothers, if we're not helping victims cope with what happened to them, but instead we're trying to force them to have a baby that is not in their best interest, then I think that that's just hurting the mother, and it's hurting the child as well, because that child won't come into this world and have the support structure. If a mother doesn't want to have a child, that's up to the mother, and I think that the pro-life argument is endangering so many more lives than it's helping, because I think that at the end of the day, you're not helping the child as well. And the standard of life increases for everyone if pro-choice is the way to go, because if we're helping women finally get the rights that they deserve, then you're increasing the standard of life for everyone. You're increasing the ability for people to live in America in the best way that they can. And that's just going to help allow them to elevate in the workplace, elevate socially, elevate mentally, right? You're allowing them to have good mental health, and that's more important than anything. Not try to force a child on them, affect them mentally, affect them socially, affect them in the workplace. It's just creating so many compounded effects that I think that it's stupid. And again, I referenced this kind of in the beginning, but Alabama's setting a very, very dangerous precedent. Because what else can people use religion for as a justification, right? We're in this really weird gray area right now, because we're supposed to be secular. We're supposed to be separating church from the state. And we're supposed to be viewing things objectively and not trying to mix the two. And I think that, again, if you personally don't like abortions, don't get them. I respect that. But don't try to force other people because your religious views restrict you from that option. That isn't fair to them. It isn't fair for the society as a whole to try to force one religion's viewpoints on an entire matter. It sets a very dangerous precedent for anything else, because if anything else doesn't fit one religious perspective, then it just sets a dangerous precedent. And I think that it can be easily avoided by just staying out of this specific option and really just trying to help women cope with the trauma that they're probably going through. Abortions aren't an easy thing to get. It's a traumatizing experience. It's an entire process. And if people are just going to argue that it's going to be abused, then that's a stupid thing. And even if it is abused, it's up to the women to do that. It's not up to everyone to come together and create this blanket solution for everyone to follow. That's just going to be stupid. And how much more polarized is America going to become as a result of this one extremely stupid law that's been passed, right? If you go into any kind of social media right now, it's so aggressive, and it was aggressive even before, but now it's just to a new level, and it's just going to increase and stack and just become more and more toxic, because one state was so stupid enough to try to create a blanket solution that doesn't fit everyone, that's going to hurt more people than it helps. And I think it's just an incredibly stupid thing. And I think that for all the guys listening right now, if you are a pro-lifer, if you don't understand how this affects your life, I mean, if you have any female relatives, and eventually someday this might affect them, it might become a point of trauma for them. It might be a case of a long-term big negative experience for them. And I think that if we can come together and just understand that at the end of the day, it isn't up to everyone to decide what one woman, two women, what anyone wants to do. I think it's up to the individual. And the government has to stay out of it. They have to stay out of creating these extremely stupid penalties. I mean, I think I was looking at doctors who treat women can be treated as felons now, and I think that's just extremely stupid, because you're just creating so many negative consequences for everyone involved in this process. And maybe I'm not the most knowledgeable about this topic. Maybe I'm not the best political scientist who can explain everything that's happening here. But I'm an individual who's concerned about what's happening in Alabama and what that can mean for other states, other red states. And I think that it's just a terrible thing to try to force upon anyone. And I'd really like for everyone to come together to try to go against this, to try to bring upon better circumstances for anyone. Because I think that no one should have to go through the trauma that this bill is going to be forcing upon people. And I want people to understand that. This isn't going to be the only episode where we talk about this because it is such a loaded topic. There is a lot of sensitivity here, and I want to bring the right people to talk about this as well. So thank you guys for listening to me. Make sure you guys go out there and try to support the people that you can. Share those tweets, those posts that help with this. I think Yellowhammer has been the fundraiser for Yellowhammer has been going around. Make sure you guys donate. Do what you guys can, because again, this is going to affect everyone, not just some people. So thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned for more. I'm RJ Javangula. Peace out.